association. Because one of the things we're talking about in termination is the termination of the active engagement in a daily sense with the listener, who is the analyst, and the reflector, who is the analyst. And so I found myself wishing that instead of using the vocabulary of the interminable, that you had talked about ongoing. Because interminable supply sort of implies that it's supposed to stop, and that there's something wrong if it isn't stopping, if it's interminable. And so the fact that it's continuing or ongoing or infinite would perhaps give it a more positive connotation, which I agree with you it should have. So that we could then talk about termination as related to alloanalysis and a different whole set of words for the autoanalysis.
Thank you very much for that question. It allows me to clarify a couple of things. First, if we put together two things, if we put together this idea that psychoanalysis is a process that has moments of autoanalysis and moments of alloanalysis, if we put that together with this other idea I mentioned with regard to the importance of differentiating between the analytic relationship and transference, if we put the two things together.
That's what I wanted to say. Right on.
Right. Okay, thank you. So if we put those two things together, in the long run, we would have to accept that the termination of the relationship, in principle, is as any relationship that would end. And of course, it's terminable, the relationship, and of course, all that can happen there, all the mourning, or whatever that has to happen, will happen there. But for that, it's very important to differentiate between transference and relationship, because if we don't do that, then that's why we tend to think that the termination of the relationship is so different between the analyst and the analyst than other relationships. So, in principle, I tend to think that unless proven otherwise, we should not anticipate that it's going to be so much different as any ending of any relationship. Of course, it's going to be very different, as all relationships are different and they finish in a different way. But it changes because then we're just facing the ending of a relationship. You know? Supposedly, afterwards, after that, the transfer has been solved, you know? Which of course probably never happens completely, but that's also true of any relationship. You know? That there's some sort of transference in any relationship also. So in the long run, it's not so difficult. But the good thing about your question for me is that it allows me to emphasize that the point is not so much the interminable part, which I agree, maybe it's a better, it sends a strange message, no, to say interminable. But what I want to point out there is that with a psychoanalytic process, there are irreversible changes in the mind of the person who's under analysis. No? That the changes, if reasonably successful, what I'm saying today, there are changes in the mind of that person for life. No? That's the emphasis I would like to make. One of those changes, the consequence of those changes is that the person will tend to continue for life in psychoanalysis, be it autoanalysis or alloanalysis. And as I mentioned, even when people like us who have been analyzed but we are not currently in alloanalysis, we are in some way open to that, you know, and we are, it's one of the things we think it's a to-do thing, you know. We always think, oh, in my case, for example, it's been at least 25 years since I haven't been in alloanalysis. And I know that that shouldn't be, you know. I know that I need alloanalysis, you know, and that because autoanalysis has its limitations, and alloanalysis has its limitations. There are certain things you can only process within autoanalysis, and there are certain things you can only process within alloanalysis. Neither of the two is better than the other one, and both have their limits, And in my opinion, the psychoanalytic process is a mixture of both, and for life a mixture of that. No? And just the fact that one is willing to eventually lie in the couch again, right, is what I'm talking about. No? That means that in my mind, I have an irreversible change in my life that opens my mind both to autoanalysis and to an eventual alloanalysis. But you're right. I agree that probably the word interminable is complicated because it's talking about that it's unfortunately interminable, something like that, which I think it's not. That's the whole idea I'm talking about today. That it doesn't end as a process, and it shouldn't end, and it's great that it doesn't end. I mean, in my opinion, one of the signals that the process was successful is that it becomes interminable in the sense that I'm talking. I'm not saying that the alloanalysis is interminable, but the process as such is interminable between the two. But again, coming back to the other one, I'm also not saying that you should then just finish the relationship, finish the alloanalysis, begin autoanalysis for life. No. I think that if you're successful in your autoanalysis, implicitly at a certain point you need again alloanalysis. Because autoanalysis has its limitations whatever age you have. No? So and you feel that, and we all know that by experience, that there's a point when we should do alloanalysis. Maybe we never do it, but we'll die knowing that we should have done it again.